Hi, this is Linda Ellers from Great Glass Galore. The next step in your stained glass project is learning how to solder. But first I want to go over the tools and materials and safety you need to do the soldering video. So the main thing you need obviously is a good soldering iron. And we're not talking your circuit board soldering irons which solder very little solder. Those just do not get hot enough. You need something that's 80 watts or greater and has a flat tip and not a pencil tip. So this is a flat tip versus a tip that looks like a pencil. The best iron I have found right now is the Hakko FX601. The reason it's so great is it has a ceramic core heater, so it reheats really fast. And when you're doing a lot of soldering, what's happening is you're melting the solder on the iron, it's transferring it to the foil. Cheaper or irons that aren't as good will not be able to keep the solder melting as it transfers it to the foil. So you'll suddenly be soldering and all of a sudden you won't be able to solder at all. You'll have to stop and let the iron rest. So this iron is great in that there's no problem with that because of the way the ceramic core heater works. In addition, you're also going to want to have some kind of controller on the iron to vary the temperature. And this iron also has this little controller built in. So this is the packaging. This is one of my irons, obviously heavily used, but this is a controller built in so you can change the temperature. So you'll want to use one setting for regular soldering, but you'll want to be hotter if you're just soldering heavy. If you're soldering straight metals, like a vase cap or your frame, you'll want the temperature higher. But if you are tinning, or tinning means just coating your metal with a light coating of solder. If you're just tinning your foil on the edges of your pieces, then you want a lower temperature so you don't melt the sticky backing on the foil. So that really helps a lot. So this is the best iron. Hakko used to make a more heavy-duty iron, the FX. This is the Hakko 150, the 456. They discontinued this for this option because it's a lot lighter, easier to use. It's very lightweight and reheats even faster than this one. This new one heats up in a minute. This takes about 5 minutes. Although I do like to use this one when I'm doing larger projects with copper restrip reinforcing in it. But if you see a used one available, if you pick up some of these tools, this is a really good iron. Tips are still available for it. And then usually the best controller is the Glass Star controller. So this comes with a bigger controller. Again, goes from 0 to 100% of the iron temperature. So that's another option. Okay. So the other thing you'll want is some kind of smoke absorber is really recommended. This has a charcoal filter in it, so it has a fan and it's pulling the fumes in away from your face. So you're worried about the flux fumes, and people with asthma have problems, or if you have eye allergies, it can bother your eyes. Me, I tend to get a headache with it, so I use this. You can try, I don't recommend a regular fan because they're usually too strong and they'll cool your iron off. So you kind of want to be careful with how much airflow you're getting, but you do want some kind of ventilation, either in a room with an open window where you can filter some of the fumes out than just an enclosed room where you're really getting all those fumes. Okay. So you'll also need solder, and what you're going to use for this is 60-40 solder. That means 60% lead, 40% tin. Lead-free solder does not work well for beading technique for the stained glass copper foil method. It's usually used just in jewelry. You also have to run really hot when you're using lead-free, which also can damage your tip. So we're going to use 60-40. Another good one is 63-37 solder. It's called Ultimate Solder by Canfield, but usually the two brands I recommend are Choice and Canfield. All solders are not the same. They can have impurities in them, and those impurities can make your solder lumpy, so that can also make a difference. Another thing you'll need is flux. So this is a chemical. It's an acid. It causes a reaction between the metals, so when you heat it, all the metals stick together. So fluxes are also not all the same. So I kind of recommend the Glass Star liquid flux. It really makes the solder flow the best, I think. The drawback is it's liquid. Once your flux is dry, then you have to apply more. And so usually I also like this gel flux. This doesn't dry as quickly because it's a gel. It also has a lower boiling temperature than this one, so it just doesn't dry out as quickly and it doesn't bubble as much, and we'll go over bubbles later. The drawback to this gel flux is that it's really tough to get a good copper patina after using this. So if I'm going to copper patina, I only use this. And if I'm going to just leave the solder silver or patina black, I'll use the glass star flux on the front side of my project. And then I'll use the gel flux on the back side where I get more bubbles. And again, I'll just show you that later when I start soldering. Okay. So you'll also need an iron stand. And you'll need a sponge that you're going to get wet. So a sponge you're just going to use for that. And a flux brush. I like also, this is a flux cup holder. They don't make these anymore, but you really don't want to tip over your flux because there's safety concerns there. So I like to put my flux in there. Obviously these aren't available, so usually a good coffee mug is really pretty stable, and you can put that in the coffee mug. Okay. So back to the iron, we have different size tips. The basic iron comes with, this Heiko iron comes with a small narrow tip. I don't know if you can see it over the gray or the white. But once that, it seems to work really well for my beginners, but I like a tip that's a little bit wider. You want to make sure your tip is wide enough to cover the two pieces of foil you're trying to connect. So, or if you have shaky hands, a even wider tip is better. So if your hands shake a little while you're doing it, then it still covers the two pieces of foil. It is okay if the tip hangs over onto the glass. It's not going to hurt the glass. Okay, so that's the one I want to use. This is what I'm going to. In terms of safety, we'll go back to the lead. There's lead in this. Lead is bad for you. So really, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, it's really harmful to a baby and young kids. So it's not recommended that you solder if you're pregnant or breastfeeding. In terms of lead fumes, the lead does not get hot enough when you're soldering to create lead fumes. However, you still can get it into your body by either ingesting it or getting into your bloodstream through cuts. So generally, I do a lot of glass cutting, and I have cuts on my hands. And so then I put gloves on when I do it, just to make sure it doesn't get into my system that way. People frequently will ingest it if they eat, drink, or smoke while they're doing the soldering. So it's not recommended you do that. I do have a glass that I drink out of that's either a mug where I hold the handle so my hands aren't touching the top of the cup, or I have a tall glass so I'm not touching the top of the cup. So, and let's go back to the flux. Again, the flux is an acid. It doesn't create severe burns, but you will get a rash. It's irritating to your skin. Usually your hands are calloused enough, so if you solder without gloves, it doesn't bother your hands, but if you get it higher up on your arms, or you wipe your nose, it's going to get really stingy and itchy. You need to wash it off right away. I like to have a cotton ball with some 91% alcohol on it. And if I feel like it's splattered on my arms, I'll actually take the cotton ball with the alcohol and I'll just rub it, and it'll kind of neutralize it, and then it doesn't bother me. Either that, you want to wear long sleeves when you do the soldering. I'm just too hot to be wearing long sleeves, so I don't wear them too often anymore. So again, it's good to have a pair of gloves handy and safety glasses, because the solder will splatter, could spit, you could get solder in your eyes, you could get flux in your eyes. You know, you're burning the flux and it does get into the air. You can almost feel a little coating on your face. It will build a coating on your contacts also, so this will also help save your contacts and make them last longer. So that's the start of the video. We're going to go on to the next video, and I'm going to show you how to solder.